You have questions, we have answers. This is Jane Muller.
And this is Ken Muller. Welcome to our show, all about real estate with Ken and Jane. And Jane, I have to say to you, happy anniversary, darling.
Thank you.
Wait, did I mess up? It's not our wedding anniversary, is it?
No.
No, it's actually the 1-year anniversary of the radio show, all about real estate with Ken and Jane.
I think that's the one we celebrate, right?
Yeah.
We don't normally celebrate our anniversary,
Right.
wedding anniversary.
At least not publicly, right?
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, so we made it a year, right? A lot of good things, a lot of good content. Actually, I have a present for you to celebrate our 1-year anniversary. I have a very special guest to introduce. Basically, he was with us the first show.
Yes.
And he was with us another time, and he's the only three-peat guest. The one and only Carl SanFilippo, the broker-owner of ReMax First Realty. Carl, a big welcome to the show.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me back. And I just got to say, congratulations to you two. I mean, I've been listening to the show over the year, and you guys have come so far. And this isn't easy, so anybody listening, you really step outside your comfort zone to do this. You guys have done a great job. You've added a lot of value, and the last year in the real estate market's been probably one of the most interesting years in the real estate market. So kudos to you two for your 1-year anniversary. I'm very proud, and I was honored you invited me to come back.
Thank you. I still remember the first time, Carl. I was so nervous. For me to be speechless was really unusual, but that was one of the time.
Yeah, one of the very few. Unfortunately,
right.
There aren't too many others. It could be at home. It would be useful if there were, but not. So anyway, Carl, we've been speaking a lot about the market, and you've been doing a lot of market discussions and team meetings and things. So we wanted to get your perspective for the listeners out there to let them know, what the current state of the market is and how, how this market can really benefit the buyers. There's a lot of positivity that comes out of it just because the interest rates have gone up. True, they've risen, but there's a lot of good things, and I think you touched upon that at the last team meeting. How this market can really be a buyer's market, beneficial for things like getting a lower bid price, less competition, more selective, more negotiating rights. The tax benefits of home ownership and the mortgage interest rate. So there's a lot of things that come into play. So if you want to, give your insight as a broker owner you represent, a lot of agents look to you and for guidance, and you're very well versed in the market. So we'd love to hear your thoughts.
No, I appreciate it. So the market's changed tremendously in a year, but it also hasn't changed. So we had our company-wide office meeting, and we had over 120 realtors at the meeting, and I did a market update. And what I think is really important when you look at the market is there's two markets. There's one, the national market, and two, there's the local market. Right? What's happening in other parts of the country that are making headlines on the news might not be the same thing that's happening here in Middlesex County, Mercer County, Union County, Monmouth County. So when I do a market update, I like to say this is what's happening nationally, and these are reasons this is happening nationally. But what's happening here? What's hyper-local? What's happening in East Brunswick? What's happening in Middlesex County? So I think when I did my market update, and I know both of you were there, I heard a lot of ahas in the room.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people were very surprised when they look at the data, because we're very much living in a society where you're getting a lot of information off of a headline. Right, this is happening, that's happening. Some of the hottest real estate markets in the country over the last 2 years, Boise, Idaho. When I tell people that, they're always shocked. Boise, Idaho exploded during the pandemic. We saw a huge growth in Austin, Texas. We saw growth in all these areas. And what happened during the pandemic, where a lot of people were able to work remote. So they moved to areas that you would never expect people to move. And I think they even called them like remote working towns.
Yes.
And then they got an email from their boss or their company saying, hey, time to come back to the office. Right? We see that more and more, that people have to go back to the office. And we see more and more that people want to go back to the office. Right? They want to see other people. They want to be in a community. So nationwide, you see headlines where some of these markets that just really flywheeled, even more so than we saw here in New Jersey, they're starting to pull back a lot. And that was just bound to happen because of supply and demand. So you see a lot of these headlines, and they are going nationally. We've never seen mortgage rates, or I've been in the real estate business 15 years. I've never seen mortgage rates increase as much as they have over the last 12 months. But I tell people when rates were 2.5%, 3%, that was a gift.
Yes.
That was not a normal. I would rather not have another pandemic than get 2.5% rates. Right? That was a reaction from the government because of the COVID and shutdown and interest rates. I'm much happier having more 4, 5, 6% interest rates than having to go through the pandemic.
Yes.
So that was a gift. I don't think we'll see that again. But what I think is we're going to see, so rates now are hovering between 6 and 7, and they change daily at the time of us recording this. But I think we're going to see eventually the rates pull back down, probably settle around 5%. So what happened with the rates going up so much is it's a two-pronged effect. One, when rates were 2.5%, what did a lot of homeowners do who didn't move? They refinanced their house at a rate of 2.5, 3%, and they saved money on their monthly payments.
Mm-hmm.
So what's happening is now that rates are at 7%, is a lot of sellers are thinking, do I really want to sell my house right now? Because if I sell my house right now, it's tough to find another house. And instead of having a 2.5% or a 3.5% rate, my rate's going to be more than doubled. I'm going to sit here and ride it out. And what I say to that to that seller is, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, one of the best advantages of real estate, and let's just say your house appreciated $200,000 over the last 2 years. Real estate, when you're owner occupying it, and I'm not an accountant, but could be one of the greatest tax-free advantages you have
Absolutely.
in this country. Because if you made that money in the stock market, you made that money in crypto, and we all know what's happening in those markets, you sold them, you have taxes to pay.
Yes.
So let me ask you, is the tax savings you're getting selling your house now outweigh the gains of going to a house you want where maybe your interest rate's a little higher than you want? And that gives a lot of sellers like an aha moment, because that is true. It's one of the best advantages of home ownership is some of the tax advantages. And we talked about that a year ago on the show, and that's tried and proven. So that's keeping a lot of houses off the market. So we're hearing that it's a shifting market. People think 2008 is right around the corner. You know, I was in the business in 2008. I was really heavy into the distressed property market, and it changed overnight. Unemployment skyrocketed. Banks were shutting down. I had a cousin that worked at Lehman Brothers, and he said he'd go in every day, pull the door, and didn't know whether or not it was going to open. You know, we're in a different time right now. So I don't think we have 2008 right on the horizon. But the only thing that's constant in this business and in this world is things change. Right? We're not in an up market. We're not in a down market. We're not in a shifting market. We're in a real estate market, and things change. So when you look at the national numbers, you know, I was just seeing all the national headlines. Wow, it looks bleak. But I said, let's look at New Jersey. So just for instance, I looked at Middlesex County, and I compared the stats from August in 2020 to August 2021. Mm-hmm. And most people listening to this are probably thinking, well, the market's supposed to be getting worse. There's probably more houses on the market in August 2022 than there was in August 2021. But when you look at the data, because I say numbers don't lie.
Yes.
You can listen to any headline, but let's look at the numbers.
Right.
And you both know me pretty well. I'm not the biggest data-driven guy. But so I looked at the data. It was around, don't quote me, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it was around 15% less listings went on the market in Middlesex County this August compared to last August.
And even September, even more. Yeah, the gaps, you know, the difference between this year versus last year is much less inventory.
So everybody, so let's look at supply and demand. The supply is getting even lower for some of the factors we just talked about.
Yes. Right.
And I think it's going to stay that way. And I think some of the numbers will probably kind of close in, and that gap will get less in like December, because last December we went through a big COVID scare. A lot of people kept the house on the market, and I don't think that's going to be as big of a factor this year. But there was less inventory, so there was less transactions.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And there's been more realtor in the business now than ever. But
16,
right. I think you
1.6 million agents.
Wow.
That are realtors for the NAR, right?
Anyway, for the National Association of Realtors. And 1.3 million of them have sold less than 4 houses in the first 6 months of 2022.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. So it's important. This is why it's important you have a true professional that you're working with when selling your house. So so I said, but I always know a lot of people's initial reaction when I give these numbers. They're like, okay, well, Carl, that's August compared to August, but what about year to date? Okay, year to date was even a bigger gap. We're down about 20%, and we're down. So if we're down 20% in listings, we were down 16% in sales. Again, because what are you selling? The listings aren't there.
There,
That's
right.
right. Yes.
So it's tougher time, and we talked about this too. And I was telling agents, and I talked to a lot of agents. I coach a lot of realtors, and I coach other entrepreneurs. There's two things you need to have in this market.
Right. You said them at the meeting. Yep.
Right. One was, and nobody guessed them.
No,
Right? I heard everybody shout everything out.
We said, perseverance, knowledge. I mean, we all hit all good adjectives, but the two things are, let's see if Jane Muller was paying attention. You need
Jane, pop quiz.
Blank set and blank set. You need two things. One begins with an
Skill
M.
set.
That was the second one. But
Skill set?
What's the first one? You got to.
Mindset.
Very
Yeah,
good.
she
Yay.
passed.
You passed.
See?
Jane.
No, excuse me.
Jane,
that's a A+.
A+. Now I know you were paying attention in my meeting. Good.
Yeah. No, that's it. We think alike.
But it's true. You need your mindset, because if you get distracted all by the national news and you're not hyper focused, I don't care what real estate market it is, people need to move. People have circumstances in their life, relocation, whatever it might be, some good, some bad. People are going to want to move. Right? So if it's not getting distracted by the national news, really focusing on your local news, and you can only control what you can control. Us three sitting here in this room, we can't control interest rates, right? But we can control our actions and what we do and the customer service we provide to our clients.
Yes. I
And we-
totally agree. That's you only can do what you can do. As you said, the mindset is very important, because during these unsettled conditions, right, market conditions, both buyer and the seller may be worried. So if as their agent, if you start to, if your emotions start yo-yoed, how that going to affect your client?
Right.
You have to stay calm and help them to go through this process. So mindset is absolutely important.
Yeah. And I think we saw a lot of appreciation in the first quarter of this year. I think that's going to slow down. I think it's going to get a little bit more. We're still going to see appreciation, but at a much slower rate than 15, 20% a year. But I think the appreciation is going to be there. And I think if you're buying a house and your plan is to stay there long term, it's always a good investment. It's always a good time to buy. I use a story. I bought my first house. I was 25 years old in 2007. And we all know what happened in 2008. The market crashed. I thought I overpaid for that house. I have a lot of equity, and I still own that house. I have it as a rental property. I have a lot of equity in that house because over time, I went through the down market, came to the up market, and it appreciated.
Yes, absolutely.
Yep. In the long term, you're going to be ahead of it. Absolutely.
Yep.
I always say, have you ever talked to somebody who owned a piece of real estate for 30 years and said, wow, I wish I didn't buy that property?
Right. I think the last show we were on, you told a story about your grandfather, and it was one of those literally, wow, I wish I had, where your grandfather had told you a story back in, I think, Brooklyn or Queens, that he wished he had bought another piece of investment property because he would have been sitting even prettier had he done it.
Right. When you buy real estate on speculation, you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
But if you're buying real estate to build wealth long term, it's always a win.
Right. All right. Well said, Carl. With that, we're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back after these messages. Okay, welcome back to our show. We're joined today with our special guest, Carl SanFilippo, the broker-owner of ReMax First Realty, and we're talking about the real estate market conditions. Now, guys, I want to shift the focus a little. I know the numbers are down, that, the interest rates have gone up, but I want to talk about the fact that it's really, from the buyer perspective, it's not all doom and gloom. I mean, our mortgage rep, Joe, brought this up at the team meeting we had, that true, the mortgage rates have gone up, but historically, they're comparatively very competitive still at 6%, even 7%. Back in the 90s, they were like at 10%, and that was with buying down points. But there's a lot of benefits to the buyer in this market. Number one, you're not necessarily overpaying $30,000, $50,000 for the house. So that money is a savings that can go towards, affording the additional monthly payment. You can write off the mortgage interest is fully tax deductible.
Whatever you don't pay the overbid, you can use that cash to buy down the interest rate as well.
That's another thing. You can buy down points, and then also you have more bargaining rights in terms of your home inspection and the appraisal contingency. So you have more protection from the buyer perspective that you're not waiving all your rights as you were the last 2 years during this traditionally seller's market. So I think there's a lot of positive things, and it is a good time for buyers to get out there and find a good agent, a knowledgeable agent that's going to find them a good deal and go house hunting now.
No, I agree. And it's also, buyers have the expectation. I mean, in January, you're making an offer on a house, you're competing against 20 other offers. And I think what's happened with the mortgage rates increase is the buyer pool is definitely diminished, but it's still active.
Yes.
You're still seeing a lot of multiple offers.
Yep.
Still making strong offers, but to Ken's point, there's all these jokes of all the things you used to have to give away to get your offer accepted.
Even in the running, if it becomes top 3 for seller to consider, you have to give up a lot. Yes.
Right. And I always tell buyers too is, hey, you might not get your offer accepted now, but if it's a strong offer, there's a good chance they might come back to you. That's happened to me personally. Yeah. I've seen a lot of real estate transactions where you make an offer, because a lot of people, even when I talk with friends and they say, hey, I have a highest and best situation, what should I offer? And I always give the same advice. I would offer a number that if it gets accepted, you're thrilled. You didn't think twice. You're not wondering if you overpaid. And it's also got to be the same number if they come back to you and say you didn't get the property, that you're okay and you can walk away.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Great advice.
Right.
Great advice.
I said that's what you should be offering, because I've seen people where they've offered a number, it gets accepted, then they get cold feet.
Yes.
Right? And I don't want to see people do that. Or they don't get the offer accepted and they want to go back and offer more. I should have offered this.
When they lost the bid.
Exactly. So I always say you got to offer that number where you win, you're ecstatic, you're moving forward. And then if it doesn't get it, you have that attitude, well, it wasn't meant to be.
Yes.
And when you have that attitude, I think it makes the process a little bit more easier, because it's still it's one of your biggest purchases. For most people, it's one of their biggest purchases of their life.
Absolutely. I mean, Carl, that's absolutely right. And the second point on your, the list was the skill set, right? Coming back there, mentioned the home inspection and the process, right? You offer the number is absolutely the number you're happy with. And but if you didn't get it, you can okay with yourself, walk away. However, in recent deals, I found a lot of home inspection issues. I think as an agent ourselves should really improve our skill set. Say, for example, when you're showing the house, I mean, obviously we're not a licensed home inspector, but you still can see, if you see the HVAC is 30 years old, you have to brought up to your buyer attention. You say, hey, this seems working, obviously the house well maintained, but your inspector going to tell you it's end of user life. So that's not an excuse to get a seller to give you a new one. That's going to cost roughly, depends on the brand, the capacity is anywhere between 10 to 12, 15,000, between 10 to 15 in the range. So you have the budget for it, right? So a lot of time, right, as an agent, our skill set is very super important in these volatile markets.
And also, to add to that, Jane, you and the other agents at that recent top producer panel that's sponsored by the local chapter, basically that's critical. I think, and you or another agent there said basically you hire a realtor for their professional advice and their knowledge. You don't hire them to open the door and say, this is the living room, this is the bathroom, here's hardwood floors, this one's got carpet. You hire them for their expertise, obviously knowing the value of the home, but also pointing out, like, hey, you might want to budget for the roof. Yes. It looks like it's near the end of its life. Yep. Like you said, the furnace. That's really, if they see water infiltration or things that are visible, and also study the seller disclosure. If anything is revealed by the seller side, that's a material defect that's hidden. You have to. So you want to educate them in what to look for and the home buying process.
Absolutely.
The realtor is more valuable in the transaction now than ever.
Yes.
And this isn't just my opinion. This is proven by data. This is my data show.
I thought you're not a data guy.
NAR, the National Association of Realtors, put out a report, and they compared 40 years of real estate. They compared 1981, which happened to be the year I was born, to 2021. To 2021, they compared the numbers of transactions, everything. So in that 40 years, is real estate got infiltrated, not by millions of dollars, billions, probably hundreds of billions of dollars by technology companies whose mission was to put the agent out of business. They say the agent's not valuable, we can help with the transaction. And there's technology companies that definitely have helped with the real estate transactions. So I was surprised to see this, and I'll ask you guys, do you think more people used a realtor in 1981, or did they use a realtor more in 2021?
I know the answer. The reason is because we covered this on a show previously, and I posed the same question to Jane, and actually I think I got it from one of your prior podcasts. So I know the answer, but I'll ask. Jane should know the answer too.
Of course, use more agent.
Right.
Because 10, 15 years, 20 years ago, when a lot of websites start to, have these resources, some realtors, some real estate agents are really worried. Say, oh my God, we're doomed. We're going to lose our job. You know what? In fact, I think it's much better for the market because it used to be the buyer have to come to the office, look at it. Agent had a little book, secret book. And later on, the technology make it more open. So if don't tell them how many bedroom, how many bathroom, they already seen it.
Right.
You have to help them with a more in-depth knowledge.
Oftentimes,
yeah.
most times the buyers out there know as much about the features of the home as some of the agents do. Right.
Yes,
so you have to know that they're hiring you for your professional advice, which gets into the home inspection issues.
The buyer needs and what they need.
And the neighborhood, the schools.
I always say funding a home, no difference like a matchmatching to find a husband and wife, right? And you have to really see what you need and what you want. You have to balance these two. So and skill wise to balance these two also to help the client to go through the whole process, regardless of buyer and seller. Yes.
Well, I'm excited in 1 year to see what the real estate market's like compared to this year. Think about how much things changed in the last 12 months. What things are going to look like 12 months from now are going to be totally different. But what's going to stay the same is that, realtors are an important part of the transaction.
Absolutely.
Right. There's so much out there on the internet that a realtor is so valuable to help you decipher through that, decipher through the process. And I think the true professional agents are going to rise. Mm-hmm. And I think we're going to see a lot of realtors maybe exit the business, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. But I think it's just that's where we're headed towards. If I had to guess where we are in 12 months, I think inventory over the next 12 months is still going to be tight. I don't think it's going to – right now there's about two – in Middlesex County, which is say Central Jersey in general, it's about 2 months worth of inventory on the market, which is incredibly low. Mm-hmm. Usually when we see a market shift to a buyer's market instead of a seller's market, there's usually about 7 months worth of inventory, so 3 times as much inventory as we have on the market now and how long it lasts. Yeah. So things will change. They always do, but I don't think it's going to be a hyper speed change like we saw in 2008.
I agree with you because 2008 was more caused by the subprime mortgage. Right. That was really, a lot of people just had a 0% down and they have no skin in the game.
Right.
But this time, the lending is much, much strong. The buyer quality, financial quality is much, much strong. So, I don't think that would be happening like last time. No, I totally agree with you.
Over the last 2 years, we saw a lot of offers get accepted with a lot of big down payments or cash,
right?
Because because it was so competitive that without those strong terms, they were losing out on the house.
Right. And even if they waived the appraisal contingency, they had to be in the financial position to do
cover,
that.
Right.
So therefore, the banks are, like Jane said, we're not in the subprime situation of 2008. So it's not like there's going to be that type of banking collapse because the buyers that were strong enough were able to waive the appraisal contingency. If they couldn't financially do it, they were out of luck. So like you said, the circumstances are definitely different in today's market as compared to 2008.
Different market. We have a different challenge, but as Carl said, look forward to the new year and see.
And what's great is we're sitting here now recording this, sitting pretty much dead smack in the middle of New Jersey, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
that's right. And hey, Carl, we're running out of time, but let's say any listeners out there that want to, would like to be a real estate professional, real estate agent, and they want to reach out to you and, join our great group of colleagues at ReMax First Realty, ReMax Tri-County or ReMax Cranford. You've got 3 offices. What would be the best way? Because there may be some people that are hungry to get in the market now, and it's never a bad time for hungry and people that have the right skill set and mindset.
Talk about how technology's changed. So the best way to connect with me is just connect with me on Facebook or follow on Instagram. Shoot me a direct message, and I'll be sure to get back to you. We're always looking to have talented people in our organization like you two.
Fantastic.
That's perfect.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Carl. Very good. All right, guys, we're out of time. I want to once again thank very much Carl SanFilippo for being our special guest today on our 1-year anniversary.
And thank the station as well.
Thank the station for their trust and faith in us, and hope everyone enjoys the rest of their weekend. We'll see you next week.
Most important, thanks to our audience.
Absolutely. Our listeners are
thank
number
you.
one. Perfect.
Thank you.